Hello and welcome to our presentation tonight. It's lovely to have you here for our 26th Holding Space for Self and Others webinar. We've got a wonderful presentation lined up for you tonight, and I'm about to introduce our guest speaker to you. My name is Jackie Short. I'm the Director of Sydney Centre for Creative Change, and we love hosting these free webinars for you, particularly in this difficult time of COVID. We have another lockdown here in Sydney and in Melbourne, so hearts go out to everyone who's had to shut up shop and close in again. And I really hope that you get some joy and some ideas out of our presentation tonight, as well as an opportunity to connect in with a couple of people towards the end of our time tonight. So the way tonight's going to work for those of you who might be new and joining us for the first time is that I'm going to, after this introduction, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, who is talking tonight on storytelling therapy. And Dr. Eric Miller is coming to us all the way from Chennai in India, so we're very excited to welcome him. After the presentation, we're going to have a chance to do some breakout rooms. So you'll be in a small group with 3 or 4 others and have a chance to reflect on the presentation and to think about how it might impact on the work that you do and on some self-care strategies, potentially for yourself and others also. At the end of the breakout rooms, we'll have time for questions from the questions for you to ask Dr. Eric. And if you'd like to perhaps put those in the chat as we go through, if anything comes up you'd like to ask him, he'll be looking at that chat later on. At the end of the question and answer time, we're going to have a time for a quick quiz at the end of tonight, as well as an opportunity to win another webinar that we're offering at one of the paid webinars. I'd also like especially to welcome any of our Indigenous brothers and sisters who are here with us tonight, our professional colleagues and friends. And I'd also like to pay our respects to the Indigenous custodians of the land that I'm coming to you from tonight, the Eora people of the Gadigal Nation, and pay our collective respects to elders past, present and emerging. So welcome one and all. I'm going to share my screen now with you, and these slides will also be available a little bit later on. So this is our 26th Holding Space for Self and Others webinar, and the focus is storytelling therapy. Our presenter tonight, as I mentioned, is coming to us from Chennai. And Dr. Eric is a native New Yorker, as you'll see in a moment, settled in Chennai on India's southeast coast, raised in Midtown Manhattan by his mother, who was editor-in-chief of Dance magazine at the time, and his father, a playwright and a magazine writer about theatre, cinema and popular music. So Dr. Eric has certainly come from a creative stock. He was trained in storytelling when he was a teenager and in folklore while earning his PhD at the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Eric co-founded the World Storytelling Institute in Chennai in 2007, earned his master's degree in psychology at the University of Madras, and is founder of the field of storytelling therapy. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Eric to you tonight. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you very much. Is my voice coming through? Yes. Jackie, you're a great host.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for setting this up. I am one of the founders of the field of storytelling therapy, and there are related fields like narrative therapy, which has been especially developed in Australia. Therapies that involve story, that use story, can be called narrative therapy, storytelling therapy, story therapy. So I have helped to develop one particular variation of this. And now I'm going to show you the 8 steps of the storytelling therapy variant that I work with. Let's see, screen share. Okay. I usually give training in storytelling therapy usually over 8 weeks, one-on-one, 8 one-hour sessions. If anyone is interested, just send me an email. Today is going to be a very, miniature version. But this is the process. First, we invite the client to tell his or her life story. That usually goes for the first session or the first 2 sessions. And sometimes I give this training in a group, in which case the other members might resonate, or even the trainer or therapist might resonate. You know, different therapists and life coaches, some of them share their own experience. This method of storytelling therapy is also useful for life coaching. There's a sort of international convention that if you want to call yourself a therapist and say you're doing therapy, you probably should have earned a master's degree in psychology or a related field. If you haven't done that and you want to do this work, you can call yourself a life coach. Okay, so first, the raw material is the client's life story, and I call that the mother of all stories, because you know, everything that we know and think about comes out of our life experience. So number 3, then identify themes in one's life story as if it was a work of literature. And this method actually is largely an elaboration of the therapeutic method of Carl Jung. I'm sure you all are aware of the psychologist Carl Jung, known as one of the founders of psychoanalysis, together with Sigmund Freud. So his method has 3 of these steps, which he called identifying themes in a life story and identifying archetypes. He called that explication, to explicate, to analyze. He was writing, I guess, in Swiss or German, so I'm not really sure about the English word translations that we get out of it, but this is referred to as explication when we talk about Carl Jung. Then the next is to gather stories that echo elements of each theme, similar to each theme in some way, either from movies or just something that you heard about. And Carl Jung called that amplifying your life. He was especially interested in comparing and contrasting his clients' experiences to mythology. So I guess if you compare yourself to Zeus or Hercules, you're amplifying yourself. But I broaden it to say you can gather any sort of story, including just something that you heard about somebody. You know, just hearsay is fine. Then 5, play with any of the above mentioned material, add a chapter, change how something ends, just play with it. And then role play with the characters. And I'll say more about this in a moment. Carl Jung did a process called active imagination, which we will do near the end of our 45 minutes. It's a way of role playing and having a conversation with an element that comes up from the unconscious. And then explore metaphors for your experience, and finally compose a metaphorical story for yourself that will inspire and facilitate yourself to grow, mature, transform, and heal if you feel in need of healing. So now I'm going to go off of screen share, and I'm going to silence my phone. And does anyone have any questions or comments about these 8 steps? You're okay? Okay. Now, let me just go over them a little bit more in a little bit more detail. I would ask you to take some notes now. Either type on your computer or get a pen and paper. And I'm not going to invite you to go into breakout rooms. I'm just going to invite you to write while I'm talking. And at certain times, I'll be quiet for some minutes and just invite you to write. This is the audience participation, part of the audience participation part of the program. So does everyone have a way to write? Good. Okay. Let's see. In the storytelling world, we have the expression, the right story will do its work on you. The right story will do its work on one. The right story. So that's an interesting sentence. It will do its work. Now, it may lead one to think, well, what work needs to be done on me? What work do I need to do on myself? And that's an interesting question. It's related to the question, in what ways might you like to grow as a person? So just take a couple minutes now and write, what work do you want to do on yourself? In what ways might you like to grow as a person? Just go ahead, I'll be quiet for 30 seconds. Okay, now I'm going to talk, and please keep writing. And I hope it's not too distracting that I'll be talking while you're writing. Again, I'll be quiet again after a couple of minutes, but please keep writing, because I'm going to ask a number of questions. What aspects of your life are going well? And in what aspects of your life are you looking forward to change and transformation? And when I say change and transformation, I'm referring to both change of your own self and also change of your external circumstances. Another way to ask this is, what do you hope to be doing 10 years from now? What kind of work do you hope to be doing? Where do you hope to be living? Who do you hope to be living with? Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? How will it be different from now? Or if you're really happy, I guess it'll be similar, right? So this process is it's kind of inviting you to take stock of yourself. And we have a saying in the USA, sometimes you want to pop the hood and see what's under the hood of a car, you know, and see and take a look at the engine. So to use the engine as a metaphor for yourself, where I'm asking you, is your engine running smoothly? If your engine is running smoothly, you're not having too much self-doubt, you're not having depression, you're not procrastinating a lot, you're not angry or bitter in general. If your engine is having trouble, it's the opposite. You might have a lot of self-doubt. You might have some depression. But basically, if one's engine is running smoothly, one is productive, expressive, creative, effective, and comfortable. So if you're not comfortable, you want to figure out why. Some people talk about a bottleneck. They use the bottleneck as a metaphor. You know, I'm feeling kind of stifled in certain ways. There's a sort of a, I feel bottled up. Okay. Now, I mentioned role playing as one of the steps. That's really, I find, where people get really obviously in touch with their memories, good and happy and challenging, and really get into things. One way you can role play is to role play conversing with a younger version of yourself. So you can identify, sometimes it's good to look at photos and see a photo of yourself at 6 or 7 or 8. And you might even imagine 2 selves. One is your joyful self as a child, and the other is yourself as a child feeling not so happy about certain things. So a term has grown in this field called reparenting. Has anyone heard this term? Raise your hand if you, Luke, you've heard of this term. Oh, a lot of you have heard of it, good. This means that you develop a relationship, you have a conversation and a relationship with the younger version of yourself, and you say to the younger version of yourself, okay, mom and dad were not perfect. They had their problems. They couldn't give, some support, some communication that you wanted, that we wanted, that I wanted, that you wanted. But here I am now. I'm an adult, and give me a chance to give you, my younger self, the support and the love that maybe you didn't fully get from our parents. So in a way, you kind of adopt yourself. It sounds funny, but some people enjoy it. And you really have a conversation with yourself about what was going well, what was not going well, and so that's one type of role playing. It's often useful to identify supportive characters in your memory and imagination, either a parent or a teacher, someone who said, I believe in you, you can do it. You have real talent. If you didn't have anybody say that in real life, you might imagine somebody saying it. I mean, that's like the fairy godmother character, who may not be giving you magic, but that love and support is, it's worth $1 million. So you might identify or create a character like that. And you might identify a character, again, based on a real person or memory of a real person, who said, you're never going to make it. You're never going to make anything of yourself. You're, you don't work hard enough. You have a number of problems in your personality, and that's a very critical voice, right? It could be a mean voice. So it can be useful to get in touch with these different voices and dialogue with them if you have anything to say to them. The dream of therapy, the hope, the wish, the ambition is that we revisit challenging situations, but this time we're in control. And we're there with a guide, a mentor, a therapist, and we can really now understand what happened. And if we felt some pain, it may be helpful and real to feel some anger about that pain and express it. And I find role playing to be a great way to feel it and express it. And then hopefully you can let go of of whatever bitterness is there, because you're getting a sense of justice. At least you're naming what happened instead of just being a victim. You become a survivor, and then you also may become someone who will help other people survive challenging situations. So this is called completing unfinished business. I'm sure you're all familiar. You know, some people, therapy has a bad name with some people because they think it's just about wallowing in anger and pain. But we never want to leave a client there. We want to help the client work through it and become a survivor. And if she has something to say to her memory of someone who was mean to her, let her say it and let her feel it. You know, this is called ab-reaction in psychology, or catharsis. When you say it, you feel it, and maybe you have a good cry over it, and then hopefully you are no longer driven by bitterness about the whole thing. Now, I'm just going to say a couple words about composing a story for oneself, which is an essential part of this process. The stories that people create often it sort of comes out like a fairy tale, because it's often a coming of age story about how a person recovered from challenging situations and came to establish herself, create herself, really discover herself, find herself, integrate the different aspects of herself. You know, when you talk about finding a spouse and falling in love, you know, the psychological understanding of that really is that you're uniting with a different part of yourself, masculine and feminine, or however you want to put it. It's an integration and unification process within an individual. And likewise, in a story, if a character has a baby, that can be seen as giving birth to herself. So a story, you know, is always a model of the past and a model for the future, a suggested model for the future. So when you create a story, you're suggesting a possible story for yourself. And this may facilitate growing, maturing, transforming. And if people, for those who feel in need of healing, if they want to overcome a trauma, the story might help in that area too. All right, I hope you've been writing while I've been talking. Let me just stop talking for 30 seconds and finish up your notes about any of this. Okay, now we're going to do two, I guess we can call them creativity exercises. One is called active imagination, and one is called, well, I call it, the question-based story making method. Question-based. It's sort of based on the 6-part story method. Has anyone heard of the 6-part story method? One of the ladies, one of the people who invented the 6-part story method, I've met her and I've interviewed her, and I can send you the link to the recording of our discussion. She says now that 6 questions are not enough, that she wants to call it question-based storytelling, story making, and so I'll lead you through a process where there are not just 6 questions, but there are a number more of those. Her name is Alida Gersi, a lady from England who is a very legendary drama therapist. And as I say, she's one of the founders of this method called 6-part story method, which she's now modifying into more than 6-part. But first, let's do this active imagination. This is my variation on it. Of course, everyone does it differently, but it's originally from Carl Jung. It's sort of a guided visualization. You might imagine yourself walking in a forest. Okay, you're in a forest. It's quiet, except for the chirping of birds and grasshoppers. And You're in the shade because the canopy of trees is blocking the sun, and you're following a path in the forest, and you see the different ferns and different plants, all the different colors of the leaves, mostly variations of green, and the smell of the different leaves. And you're walking along the path, and you come to a clearing, which actually, it turns out, it's the beach. You've come to the ocean. And as you know, the ocean is huge. So big on both sides. You look to the left, you look to the right. It's, and of course, as far as you can see, it's the ocean. So there's a little boat there, a little rowboat, which you get into and row out a bit. And you look down into the water. You decide, is it a greenish blue or just a plain blue? I always love a plain blue, but in reality, often the ocean is a little greenish, right? But see it as you like, but the essential thing is look down, down, down. And the ocean here is really representing your unconscious, your personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. So look down, down. Some people like to imagine actually getting out of the boat and getting in the water. And some people can open their eyes underwater, you know that? It doesn't hurt them, or maybe they have goggles. But one way or the other, look down, down, down into this water and address your unconscious. It's something to the effect of, oh, my unconscious, I've come to visit you. Please send something up to me that I can learn from. Sometimes I ask for a dream. Now, just send an object. Just send something that I can enjoy and learn from. That's sort of an invocation to your unconscious. And now, please close your eyes if your eyes are not yet closed. If you like, turn off your camera. Some people like to do this in privacy. But try to really visualize looking down into the water and see what comes up. And if an object comes up that is interesting to you, try to look at it from all sides and pretend that it can speak, that it has, personify it and say, thank you for coming. Thank you for visiting me. And you might have a question for that object, or you might want to tell the object something, or the object might have a question for you, or might want to tell something to you. But have a little conversation with this object. Now, some things might come up which might not be interesting, so then let it go and just to try to see something else coming up. Okay, I'm going to stop talking for a few minutes. See what comes up. And by the way, I'm sorry. By the way, what you're seeing could have something to do with the notes that you wrote, a few minutes ago, as you were soul searching. Then you were soul searching, and now something is coming up from your soul, or from your unconscious. So there could be a relationship between these two things, or not. Okay, go ahead. Just visualize whatever comes up, and if you enjoy it, initiate a little conversation with the object. If a character comes, you can work with the character too. But classically, this is done with an object that you turn into a living character. Go ahead. you might draw the object on a paper if you have paper, or you might, or you might jot down a little bit of the dialogue you have with the object. Because just like a dream, these things come and go, and if you don't jot it down, you might just forget it. Many people do this once a day as part of a sort of meditation regimen. Forgive me, I'm gonna interrupt because this is such a miniature session. I'm wondering if some of you actually visualized something that you began to have a little conversation with. If you did, raise your hand if something came to you. Good, good. You know, this is something that really should not be rushed. You should take your time with it and see what comes. But let's go on. Please forgive me. Let's go on. We're going to do the other activity. And again, keep your pen or pencil and pad near, because here it's really encouraged that you do draw. You know, when we draw, sometimes things come up that we were not even aware of. Whereas when we use words, it's a more intellectual process and we control it in a different way. But sometimes drawing is a more direct flowing conduit from the unconscious to the here and now. So if you do have a pad of paper, keep it near, and you might draw some of this. Okay, the first question I'm going to ask, this is to help you create a story, which, you know, for people who do the entire training process or who undergo storytelling therapy, they may only do this after, you know, 4, 5, 6 weeks, but we're jumping into it now just to get a taste of it. On the left side of the paper, if you're drawing, or on the left side of your imagination, if you have your eyes closed, visualize an environment. Just by whim, choose, do you want to be joining the story when it's daytime or nighttime? Is it indoors or outdoors? Is it hot or cold? If it's outdoors, how's the weather? Is it stormy? Is it calm? Is it cloudy? Is it sunny? So, you know, you may want it to happen inside an apartment. If that's the case, you know, that's fine. If you're drawing, just with a few lines, indicate where the story is taking place at the moment. And then try to imagine who might be there. Who's a character in this story? And the point is not to be a great artist, please. Just use a stick figure. Write a stick figure. A human, an animal, a goddess, a Martian from outer space, doesn't matter. Of course, it could be a personified object. If you wanted to continue your active imagination, go ahead. Bring in a character from the active imagination. Of course, if you want to bring in a character relating to anything you wrote about in the first 20 minutes, please go ahead. You know, any issues, personal issues, social issues. But this is a character who is in an environment, and one of the first questions I want to ask you about this character is, how does she feel? I'll use male pronouns and female pronouns, it doesn't matter, right? I have trouble using plural pronouns, you know, for an individual. I'm trying to find a way to do that. I see some people like it, right? To call someone they. I can't quite do it yet, but I appreciate the idea. Anyway, how does she feel? And one way to discover how she feels is to draw her mouth. You know, we know a curve in a certain way is a smile, an upside down curve is a frown, but there are many variations on that. So, draw the character in this environment and draw her mouth, and then you'll know how she feels. If she's wearing a mask, you have to draw her mouth under her mask. Okay, and now that you have a sense of how she feels, try to have a sense of why she feels that way. You know, is she happy about something? Is she frustrated about something? Does she want something? Something big or small? You know, does she want to go to the shop to buy a chocolate bar? Or does she want to be Prime Minister of Australia? Or the World Bank or whatever, you know? Does she want to go to college? Does she want to, you know, go to the beach? Does she seem to want something? And if she does want something, and if it's something more than just going to the beach, or even if it's just going to the beach, what does she have to do to achieve her goal? You know, what does she have to do? What's the plan? And does she need any resources? Does she need a car? Does she need money? Does she need friends? Does she need support in some way? What resources can she call upon to overcome whatever obstacles might come up? If she wants to go to college, she has to get money, right? She has to have a place to live. It's a number of things that have to be organized in order for her to achieve that goal. And then what happens? Does she get what she wants, or halfway, or compromise, or what happens? So in what I just talked you through, there are 6 questions, but more than 6. But that is a variation on the famous 6-part story method. It's used by psychologists actually to get a sense of the challenges people imagine and the solutions that they imagine for them, for the challenges they imagine. Okay, so we're gonna stop it just about now. Let me tell you a couple of healing stories that have come up in my clients and in my students and in the clients of my students. Sometimes it's something very simple, like one of my clients was working with a young girl who was very shy, almost couldn't speak in a group. So the story that they came up with, and I feel it's best if the client comes up with the story, with the assistance of the life coach or therapist. the story they came up with was that there was a house cat who somehow got out of the house and maybe couldn't get back in, and was walking in a forest and met a lion. And the lion encouraged the little cat to be stronger, to be more like a lion. And that inspired the cat. That was one little one. The most beautiful one that I've come across, and I hope I can tell this properly. The client didn't have a very happy childhood because her mother was incapacitated. With depression, her mother would stay in her room for hours and hours on end. And eventually, I think the mother went off to a hospital. So the client, as a girl, she was lonely. She had a younger brother, but she really missed her mother. The client, as a girl, had a pet rabbit who she loved very much and took care of. But one day, the rabbit was found as a bloody pulp because a dog had chewed up the rabbit. So this girl, maybe 9 years old, 10 years old, took the body of the rabbit and had a funeral, dug a hole in the backyard and put the rabbit's body in the hole and had her younger brother attend the funeral. And she, said some words that it had been a wonderful rabbit and she had loved the rabbit. And, she got a little bit, she was so sad, of course, but she got a little bit of satisfaction that she gave the rabbit a proper funeral. That's the client's real life. But the healing story that the client made up was that in a story, there's a young woman, maybe in her 20s, who lives on the coast. And one day, this young woman, the story character, is looking off in the ocean and sees a large sailboat, a large sailing ship coming over the horizon. And she sees women on the deck of the ship with long flowing silver hair and long, beautiful draping clothing. And some of these women, the senior women, get into a small boat and come ashore. And the young woman comes down to the shore to meet them. And the women who get out of the sailboat, these senior women with long flowing silver hair, greet the young woman and say to the young woman, we've been watching over you. We've been keeping an eye on you. We're happy that you've grown up to be a strong, healthy young woman. And now we want to invite you to come with us. We are a tribe of healing women, and we will teach you the healing arts. You can come back whenever you like, but we want to invite you on our ship. And with that, one of the senior women gave a ring to the young woman, and on the ring was an image of the rabbit that the client had had as a girl. You follow me? The client made up a story where the healing women gave a ring to a fictional 21-year-old young woman and gave that ring. And so it seemed, this group of healing women, they were somehow related to this rabbit. And then one of the senior women said, look up into the sky. It was one of those days where the sun was up and the moon was also there. And the moon, on the moon, was that same image of the rabbit. So then the young women knew that this is the healing tribe of the rabbit. And she went with them and she learned healing arts from them. And in fact, the young woman, the client, is a therapist in training. I don't know if she studies with senior women with long silver hair, but she's in the field. So my understanding of that story, my interpretation was that this client, as a girl, you know, she missed her mother, she missed her rabbit, but she made up a healing story in which the rabbit had become a sort of cosmic rabbit, and her mother was replaced in a sense, or her mother was not there, but these senior women in this healing tribe were there, and they were connected to this rabbit. I felt that this story would really resonate with the woman who created it, and would really give her a sense of belonging and strength. I don't know if you could follow with the way I told it. I probably didn't tell it clearly, but that's one type of healing story. Okay, Jackie, are you still there? Have I put you to sleep?
Not at all, not at all. I'm right here.
Okay. Would you take over the process now?
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric, for that beautiful instruction and the lovely processes that you've invited us to. I know you're going to be available to answer some questions, and there's some wonderful questions already in the chat. If you'd like to add any to that list, you can. But what I'd like to do is invite you now to connect in with some others and to reflect a little bit on some of these experiences for yourself. If there's anything you'd like to share with the 2 or 3 others that you might be in a small group with, that would be great. If you'd like to share your experience with stories or storytelling in any self-care or in any professional use way that you have, this is a good opportunity to do that. And you might be in a room with someone that you know, or you might be about to make some new friends. So be open to everyone who's in the group. Just have a minute or so very briefly to introduce yourself, and then I'll open it to discussion. So I'm going to have probably about 6 or 7 minutes, just not a long time, but a couple of minutes each, just to share who you are and what you got out of this process and how you might be able to use it for yourself or others as well. Then after about 7 minutes, you'll get, so Ada's just putting people into those rooms at the moment, and in a moment she's going to send you a message to invite you to join one of the groups. If you can possibly have your camera on for that, that's great. If not, no problem. You'll be unmuted. You'll be able to have a chat with a few others for about 7 or 8 minutes. Then at the end of that time, you'll get a minute warning, so you'll know to wrap up. And if someone hasn't spoken, that's their opportunity to jump in. And then when we come back together, I'll invite a few people maybe to reflect on some of those conversations. And then we'll move into a Q&A with Dr. Eric. And then we'll do a wrap up, a giveaway, and the quiz at the end. So if you have any problems in the breakout rooms, you can just jump out again, or if you disconnect, just reconnect in and we'll let you back in. So we'll put you into those breakout rooms now, and we'll see you back in about 7 minutes. Welcome back, those people who are just coming back. We'll just wait a few more minutes and the others will join us. Excellent. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for taking that opportunity to have a conversation with a few others. I'd like to open it now. If anyone would like to share some of what they discussed in their small group, it would be really lovely to hear back from you before we go into some Q&As. Would anyone like to reflect? Just put your hand up, give us a wave. And if I see you, I'll ask you to just unmute for a moment. Anyone like to share? Yes, I can see a lady there. Unfortunately, you're coming up as 605.
Oh, no. I'm Mary.
Mary,
yeah.
Hello, Mary.
Yeah. So there were 4 of us in the group, and all 4 of us had a profound experience when we looked into the water. And, you know, we were a bit, not skeptical, but you kind of think, oh, you're in a webinar and, you know, it's late during the day and is this going to work? And we were all very surprised about what a deep thought we had, and really, really interesting, really interesting. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Mary, and lovely to hear that you had such resonance among the others that you're in. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you very much.
So I was in the group with Mary, and we actually all went back to pretty either like deep childhood stuff, which we weren't expecting, or into the future of the depth of our futures. So it was big.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Kelly. And in such a short space of time as well. So thank you both, Mary and Kelly, for reflecting on that.
Hand up.
Yeah.
I'm Kim. I think for me, there's an intuitive interweaving of so many fragments of stories. And I spoke in a small group about how I'd come across Adele Guernsey in my training in social work, and how I'd been so enamored by her, and that was my first taste of really wanting to bring the creative arts right back in, dry social work training and I guess that story within story within story, and how you share your stories in the collective when you come together. So yeah, I just wanted to say what a rich experience this has been.
Lovely. Thanks, Kim, for sharing that too. Beautiful. I know there's some other rich experiences that no doubt you would have had in both the processes that Eric's led us through, but also in reflecting on some of those with others. But I'm aware of the time, and I would like to do a few more things before we wrap up, and including which would be also getting to some of the questions. Eric, did you want to respond to any of those in particular that you might not have time to get to all of them, but maybe a couple of those that are in the chat box there? And feel free to add any others if you have any that have come up.
Yes, well, I did respond to a couple already in the chat box. Somebody asked if we can use this method with children, and of course we can, but you may need to compose the story for them. Susan Perrow is a real pioneer and Australian in this field of therapeutic storytelling with children. Google her name, Susan Perrow. There's a phone ringing, but I'm just going to ignore it. And also, children are not as intellectual as adults. So they are not able to sometimes integrate intellectually material that comes up from the unconscious. Hold on, I'm going to take a phone off the hook.
Okay, sure. Yeah, no worries. Just while Eric's doing that, if you did have any final questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. He can either answer them in the chat, or hopefully he might get to them as well.
Children sometimes cannot integrate what has come up from their unconscious in a introspective discussion. So it depends on your career and your taste. I personally like to work with adult clients, but for people who do this sort of work with children and with groups, of course you can modify it to work with children. My wife and I run an expressive arts therapy center here in Chennai, which is the combination of all the arts. And many of our trainees are working with children. With children and sometimes with adults, it's the expression, it's the creativity in itself that's therapeutic. And there doesn't really have to be a discussion afterwards. But I like the discussion. Somebody has asked, something about, how much do clients believe in their composed stories? Well, the composed stories are, as I say, they are metaphorical. So, we know they're not true in that they didn't happen historically, but, many stories can be true emotionally, psychologically. The core of a story, what happens, the relationship, the yearning, the feeling can be true to experience, even though, it may not have happened historically.
Thank you, Eric. I think we might have to leave the questions there, unfortunately. I know there's a few more, but also where we're just running out of time, and I'm really keen to get you to the quiz as well, so you can get a PD certificate.
I just want to add that I've just put a link in the chat section. That's a link to this interview I did with Alida Guernsey.
Wonderful.
The English drama therapist. And again, to contact me, just Google World Storytelling Institute. And these days I'm giving this training, as I say, one-on-one, usually in eight weekly sessions. And the trainee undergoes the method herself or himself as a way to learn it, so that then the trainee can practice it on her clients.
Fantastic.
Okay, go ahead, Jackie.
Thanks, Eric. And I'll put the links to Eric's contact in an email to you at the end of this webinar, so you can have that direct one there for him as well. So just a few final things to share with you before we finish up and do the quiz tonight. And we want to let you know about some other training we've got coming up this week. Beate Stella's running a Supporting Grieving Children 3-hour training on Thursday this week. I'm doing a practical planning for running groups online on Thursday night. Beate's doing Supporting Grieving Children, adults rather, on Friday morning. And we have a 200-hour graduate certificate in play and art therapy, including story methods, coming up in August. If you wanted to find out more about that, that's also online. So in order to win this other webinar, this is a $40 webinar that we've got coming up next Wednesday night. And this is run by the fabulous Professor Sue Jennings, who's a drama therapist. And if any of you know of or are working specifically with parents who are just about to or have little ones and want to support them in bonding better, you can purchase this one, or someone is about to win this in just a moment. So I'm going to set up a quiz for you, an activity just to do that very quickly. Also, we have our next free webinar is in August next month, and this will be on the ideal family. It's a 5-step process to create a family vision, much like you might do in business. You create a vision for your business, a vision for the family, and it's a great process to do that with one of our counsellors and coaches who's running that for us. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And if you could join me in virtually thanking Dr. Eric in whatever way makes sense to you. Thank you from Chennai. Thank you for being here with us for such a rich and informative webinar tonight. And do be in contact with him if you'd like more details. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Eric.